guess it's 10 o'clock. So thanks for coming, appreciate it. As you know, the Dallas County District Attorney's Office has been alongside the Dallas Police Department investigating some of the events that occurred in late May and early June of this year in a protest. And so we have come to a point where we need some assistance from the public and maybe from you all. We don't have any idea who, if any of you all were out there filming, and it could be that you have relevant information. If you want to share it with us, we'll certainly take it. But we have some some stills of individuals who we don't know who they are, and they appear to have cameras, and they appear that they have maybe videotaped or maybe taken still photos of what happened. And so there are 2 or 3 events, and I want to go over them to explain what it is that we're doing and what we need, and we're asking for your help. If you give us your email, I think we have something maybe to write it down. What we're going to do is send you this PowerPoint presentation when this is over with, so you'll have it, so you won't have to worry about filming this. So anyway, let's see what I have here. So this is about individuals we need to locate. The first incident is May 30th, approximately 4 p.m. in the afternoon. It's a George Floyd protest. Where is this? Downtown Dallas, corner of South Irving and Wood, and it's near the Dallas Public Library. In fact, as you look through this, you'll probably recognize one side of the library. There's several protesters, and there was a firing of rubber bullets, what commonly known, I think, in police parlance is less than lethal, and there were serious injuries suffered by one individual. I think it's the individual you know who lost his eye. So that's the first incident we want to talk about. So if you see, we have circled here some people. We don't know who they are, but they appear that they have cameras. And by the way, let me say, we're not interested in only those people. Anybody else who was there that photographed this. What we're not interested in is just a general picture of what was going on. What we are specifically interested in is the firing of that projectile. We're interested in seeing any video showing the person, the police officer who fired that projectile that hit, I think his name is Sains, Mr. Sains, and caused him to lose his eye. So I want to make that clear. We're not interested in just what happened out there that day generally. I'm not interested in what happened 20 minutes earlier or 20 minutes after. Specifically, the firing of the projectile. We've noticed some people here. As you can see, there's somebody there. We put an arrow over it. Appears to be taking a picture from a phone. We don't know. We don't know who that person is. But we're doing our best to. So if you feel it appropriate to broadcast it, maybe they'll come forward. So there are a group of people here, pictures who appear to stay together during the protest, and we believe they're friends because they continue to be together. We believe they have information, perhaps related to this incident. We want to focus you on the signs carried by them. They may recognize their own signs. They're very unique. One person is wearing a shirt that appears to have a Malcolm X on the front and some type of quote on the back. You can see that. Hopefully, if you all disseminate this, these people will recognize themselves and come forward. Okay, you see some people here with a pink backpack. It seems to be the same person. The individuals that we have arrows to. There's somebody, if you can see, we put a circle around 2 people who appear to have cameras. Once again, we don't know if they took anything, if the cameras were working, if they were filming anything, but if they did and they caught the firing of the projectile, we would like to have it. They may be freelancers. I don't know, they may be with some of your stations, I have no idea. See another one there. So our second incident is going to be May 30th, about 8:30 p.m. Once again, protest, downtown Dallas. Where's the location? It's near the entrance ramp to 35E North off of Commerce Street. And this is the one, I think, that we commonly know as a woman who was struck by a pepper ball launcher. And in fact, you can see that right there. So there are some people in the background, and we don't know exactly. We have these pictures. These come from Mr. Chris Rusanowski. He has posted those on social media. And so we're interested in any photographs or video that anybody has about that incident right before or after. Once again, we're not interested in anything 10 minutes before, 10 minutes after. We're interested in the event, firing of the pepper ball at this one. I think you can see that's her again, seated, and other people have been arrested. We have come in contact with her, to be honest with you, and some of the other people out there, but through their lawyers. And the Dallas Police Department is investigating this incident. Okay, we have a third incident. Now we're talking May 30th at 10:40 p.m. Once again, same protest. Where? Downtown Dallas. This is the intersection of Pacific Avenue and Griffin Street. It's near Channel 4, their parking lot across from the Homewood Suites. And this is a situation where an individual was once again struck by what's known as a less than lethal rubber bullet. He did sustain very serious injuries, not as serious obviously as Mr. Sainz, but he did receive an injury to his face. So these images come from surveillance cameras. We don't know who these people are, but obviously one of them appears, as we can see, to be taking some type of pictures. I don't know whether it's video or still pictures. The man behind to the right. Okay? And we think we have 5 people. There's a person with a camera. Looks like a pretty good camera. Somebody else, I think it may be the same man. And we see some other people. Once again, I want to make it perfectly clear. We're focusing on these people because we can see them very clearly. If anybody else was there and took pictures of this incident, of the firing of this projectile, that's what we're interested in. Okay. There's another person. So, here's what. Do you have information? What we've done is put together a specific email that if anybody has information, what we're asking them to do is to let us know that they have the information, but not send the information, okay? Because we're not certain that between their, whatever they have and the county server, that it may be able to pick it up, and we don't want to lose them. So if they do, they can send us an email or call us at the number listed here, 214-653-3714. And let us know what. If you have a video or pictures from any of those protests showing the discharge of the device that hit and or injured someone, if you're in those pictures or you think you know someone in those pictures. And let me say this situation with the pepper ball, we didn't know anything about that until a lawsuit was filed and it was in the paper, okay? Why didn't we know about it? Because none of the people there filed a complaint with DPD. So we had no idea. So the other thing is, if there are any other incidents that we may not know about because someone didn't file a complaint, and if anybody has that, we're interested in that also. So that's how we found out about the pepper ball, was because it was in the paper, and we went through the lawyers and made contact and had them file their complaints with DPD. So that's being worked on. But there may be other things that we don't know about. Okay, and so if anyone has any other incident where projectiles were fired and somebody was hit and injured, we need to know about it. We'd like to know about it. So, Mr. Miles, I didn't recognize you all covered up.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Judge,
yes.
Are these investigations currently stalled or at a standstill because of the need or lack of this evidence?
Yes, I think that's fair to say. Obviously, we're doing this. We're investigating these cases, but we want to we want to be certain, okay? Being fast is one thing, being certain is something else. And these are important, I think, to the public, these situations, and we want to be certain, and we need help. If we had all of the information, we wouldn't be asking for this. So we need to know, and we need video or pictures of the actual firing, if it is, and if we have a video, what we're interested in seeing is the direction of the projectile. We want to see it from the firing all the way, if we can, to the contact with the individuals. That's important to us. We don't know if these are crimes. We're investigating them. Obviously, they're potentially crimes, and so we want to be certain.
For demonstrators who are reticent to give up this information to law enforcement, these photos, in the clearest terms possible, what is the objective of the investigation?
Well, the objective of the investigation, obviously, the district attorney's office is in it, that kind of answers your question, that it's potential that it's a crime. But it's not, they're not in any trouble. Anybody who was there and saw this, there's not going to be any charges filed against them. It may be people who were charged and we rejected or dismissed or whatever charges against them. And that was an initial problem with the individuals with the pepper ball, is that they had charges and they were reluctant because they were afraid of their charges. Well, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we had already rejected the charges by the time we got to knowing about that. So that was something that we had to communicate to their lawyers, so they would be willing to go to DPD and file complaints, which my understanding is they have.
In the case of the officer, the vivid photo of the officer shooting the pepper ball at the woman at fairly close range, is that photo insufficient alone to justify charges?
Probably not, but if anything additional comes, okay, we would like to have it. If there are any other videos or still photos of that, we want to have it. Let me say this, from my standpoint as a lawyer and the potential of going to court, it's my objective to have every bit of evidence that I can get in my possession before I go to court. Why? No surprises. It's called being prepared, okay? And if we're going to court, we're going to go prepared, not unprepared. And so this gives us an opportunity to be prepared, more prepared, maybe than is minimal, okay? We'd like to be maximum prepared.
What happens if you can't get anything?
Well, we'll continue to investigate. We have enough in some cases, for example, just what you referred to, the actual picture. We have the person. The one at night, the projectile that fired and hit the man, but he did not lose his eye. We need more on that, okay? And then the one who hit, the incident that hit Mr. Saines in the face. We actually need, if we can, to get a video of the shot being fired.
Pardon me.
What happens if you don't have the videos? I mean, what happens with that?
Right now,
case?
we don't know who fired the shot, to
Judge,
be perfectly honest with you.
Judge Crizo,
Yes.
if I may, with the riots that have broken down recently,
With the what?
with the violence that's broken out in Philadelphia and New York City this week, and with the violence that broke out in Dallas this summer, what assurances do black business owners and all business owners in Dallas County and citizens have that should more violence break out during the election, that their district attorney's office will hold those who break the law accountable?
Well, first of all, I don't assume that we're gonna have a breakout of violence. I think that Dallas is a peaceful city. I think that there may be people who come in who may want to foment violence and do that, and we're gonna hold them responsible if we can prove a case. I mean, it's like anything else. You're asking me to project what I might do. If we have evidence and we can prove a case that somebody committed a crime, and your particular circumstance related to elections, it doesn't really matter to us. But if there's an assaultive offense or anything beyond that, obviously we're going to investigate. I'm sure the police would investigate, and we're going to do what's necessary based on the evidence that we can get.
Judge, are these just acts of violence against protesters, or are there other crimes against either authorities or against businesses that you're also seeking evidence for?
Not that we're seeking evidence, we have some looting cases that I'm not exactly certain where they are. We did accept some, I know that, a handful, but my focus has not been on that. My focus has been with our public integrity section. We have been working, they and I, together on this since the summer. and of course, the pepperball thing came up, we didn't even know about it. And so that's why I'm saying there may be other situations and incidents that people have not reported, and we don't know.
Judge,
So that's why we need some help.
Judge, you mentioned that this vivid photo, that there's probably enough there for charges. Why have no charges been filed at this point? And this sergeant is still working.
Well, first of all, I don't know that he's still working. That would be a DPD issue. You'd have to ask them about that. I don't have anything to do with the administrative aspect of how they handle officers, number one. Number two, once again, it came to us late, and then we folded it in, and with DPD also, with all the rest of the investigations. When they give us files, sometimes it's voluminous, and we have to go through. Sometimes we have questions, and we have follow-up before we get to a comfort level that we understand everything that they put together. And that's common from any police investigation, okay? These cases are best investigated by the police agencies first. If you remember when the situation with the pepperball came up, if you look back, and I don't know if you were paying attention, I know all of you all are busy, but my position was they needed to file their complaints with DPD. Why? Because they're better able to investigate internally. Police officers, they're better able to gather evidence than we can externally. So what happens is, at a point, they're going to give that to us. That particular case, I don't think they've given to us yet, but we have the other two, and we need help on them.
So the
But
fact
here's the deal, while I'm doing these two, okay, it doesn't make any sense to leave that out. If I get more evidence, okay, we'll go forward. Right now, that particular case, the pepperball, is still with them, to my knowledge. I don't know where they are on it, but I would expect sometime soon that they would send it to us.
So the fact DPD is investigating themselves in this case is why charges have not yet been filed?
In part. So if we get something from them, but we don't have enough, for example, as I said, the first case where Mr. Saines lost his eye, if anybody has a photo of the shot being fired right now, we don't know who fired the shot.
Do they have body cam?
Not all of them.
Judge, if somebody's hesitant in giving some information, how do you make them or guarantee that they're not gonna be identified if they don't wanna be identified, if they wanna still help out?
Well, let me say this. In a court of law, if I'm going to put on a video, I have to have the person that took the video, most likely, okay? I mean, that's kind of a baseline. There may be some situations where we can get around it, but there's no reason for that person to be afraid, okay? No reason I can think of. Now, if somebody, wants to think that the police are coming after them, that's not gonna happen, okay? And we're going to, we have to give the information over under the law to anybody who represents a person charged with a crime. So I'll make that perfectly clear. Number one, we don't expect any retaliation. Number two, we'll do everything we can to protect the person. But honestly, number three, we have to turn over all the evidence. That's legally required. We can't do without that. And at some point, their identity will be known by the other side.
Are any suspected officers on your Brady list? In other words, they have a history of credibility issues to the point where you will not call them to testify in court?
Generally speaking, yes, we do.
So are any of the officers that are suspects in your investigation, are they on your Brady list?
They may be in a provisional status where they're under investigation. We have a provisional status for people. They may or may not have done something wrong. And so we alert, if they become a witness on a case, the policy of this office is to alert the defense that they're in a provisional status. It doesn't mean that it'll come out that they've done anything wrong, but if they're under investigation, we do turn that over. It doesn't even mean that it'll be an issue in a trial that they testify in, but in an abundance of caution, our policy is to turn it over.
Judge, you haven't had,
Let me catch you in a minute.
Can you describe where the line is between legal and illegal use of, or legal and criminal use of so-called non-lethal weapons?
Well, it could be defense of a third person, it could be self-defense. That's a line as to whether or not, and obviously that would be a factor. It could be it could be the difference in whether it's a greater offense such as aggravated assault or a lesser offense such as assault, which is bodily injury. It could be the difference between assault and aggravated assault is not the injury, but the characteristics of the device that's used and what it's capable of doing. And I'll give you an example. We have commonly called these less than lethal devices. Okay? But we have a person who was struck in the eye and lost his eye. Well, if we go back and look at the definition of a deadly weapon, it's anything that can cause protracted loss or impairment of the function of any bodily member or organ. So even though the police may call their device less than lethal, the characteristics of it, especially when you know somebody has lost an eye, would fit the definition of a deadly weapon. Okay, so even if, let's say, the second person had just bruises and this, that, and the other, the characteristics of the weapon could be that it's a deadly weapon, which would mean what? That might be an aggravated assault as opposed to just an assault. So there are various and sundry ways that we look at things here. We have to look at our definitions. We have to look at any legal justifications that are provided for in the penal code. And we have to see if any of those are brought up and to what extent they may be. And so these are all things that we may not know, especially when we don't see the firing of the projectile. We don't know what was going on. Whether there's a crime there or not, we don't know. We know there's a serious injury, and we know that it deserves to be investigated, begs to be investigated, but we may not know exactly how it's going to come out, and that's why we need this information.
So why you said that some have body cams? Why not all have body cams?
You'd have to ask the
On
police
a
that.
situation like that,
You'd have-
prevent from this, what's happening, this profile, what's going
So
on.
the question is, why didn't everybody have a body cam? And that's the question.
That'd be the cameras right there.
Okay, I'm not in charge of the police department.
Right.
I'm not in charge of their body cams. And all I can tell you is you have to ask them why some of their officers didn't have body cams. I don't know the answer to that.
Judge, if
Well,
there are.
Let me say this, I'm not the one who ought to answer that, because anything is just stuff I may have heard. I mean, and I don't wanna speak inappropriately.
Okay.
Judge, if there are future protests, do you encourage people who may go to those to document everything, to use their cameras throughout the protests? What do you encourage people to do as far as that goes, now that you're asking for this kind of information after the fact?
I think that they've done it, from what I see in the pictures, we just don't have it, okay? And I'm hoping that's what happened. I mean, let's be honest, in today's world, whether you think something is amiss or not, people use a video camera, so I don't think I need to encourage anybody to do that. But yes, that's a good idea, it would be helpful. I don't assume that anything illegal is going to happen at a protest, so, you know, it's hard for me to say, do that because something illegal is gonna happen. I don't want anything illegal to happen. I don't want anybody to be hurt, okay? And I want people to have peaceful protests. But if somebody is hurt and it looks as though it's potentially a criminal case, then we may need the public safety.
So, Judge,
I'm sorry, this lady wants to.
What is the timeline when somebody does reach out and say that they have
Speak up a little
information?
louder.
What is the timeline when someone does reach out with information?
Well, we'd like it as soon as possible.
What is the timeline for a response and the process moving forward?
You mean for filing a case?
Yes, when someone reaches out to you,
No,
what's
I
the
think we have at least
timeline?
2 years from the date of the offense, at least. I'd have to go back and look specifically. That statute kind of dances all over the place, but I think at least 2 years.
so Judge, basically.
But I don't want anybody to come showing up on the day before 2 years, okay? If we can, we need this immediately as soon as possible. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Judge, basically you're asking the public to take time, go back over the videos, et cetera. Explain that again, just to make sure.
I guess you could put it that way, yes. I'm asking the public, if they were there, if they have videos of the discharges of the devices, or if they think they do, yes, to take time to go over their devices and see if it's there. Hopefully they haven't erased it, because I know it's been a while, but we have anticipated having this, and we knew time is of the essence, and we've gotten to this as quickly as we can with a lot of other things going on. So yes, I am asking people, I guess to put it that way, to take the time to go back through their devices and see if they have it.
DA Cruzo, first question,
Can you
has
speak up a little louder?
But my first question is, has Sergeant Roger Redloff been interviewed by the Department's Public Integrity
you would have to ask the police department that. I
And
would
the
not.
second question I have is, how much information is shared from the Dallas Police Department to your office on identified officers who have been accused of allegations of use of force during the protest?
Say that again, how much information is shared?
Yes.
Well, let me just say generally, when they conduct an investigation, when they think that they're through, that they have spoken to everybody that they can find and that reasonably appears necessary to talk to, then after that, they will send it over to us. Okay? But that doesn't mean that any particular case is in a position that we feel comfortable to go forward with if we don't have all the evidence, and that's kind of the point. The Pepperball case, let's be honest, yes, can we go forward? Probably so, okay? Would we like more information if it's there? Yes, because we want to be certain.
Judge, one final question on Pepperball. Big picture, when people, look at that photo, they, many folks have said, if the shoe was on the other foot, if it was this woman throwing a brick or something that was captured that vividly, she would have long since been charged. Is it reasonable that we're at this point, I understand the mechanisms that explain why there's not been a charge, but is it reasonable that this is the way it exists, that it's a kind of a double standard?
Well, let's back it around, okay? And I think that's a reasonable question. Well, let's turn it back to where you had it. First of all, if a person, whether it's this lady or not, had thrown a projectile or shot someone like a police officer, the police officer very likely would have, arrested the person, caused charges to be filed, et cetera, et cetera. We have a situation here where he fired into her and nobody ever said anything about it. Okay, so we never knew about it. It was only, to be frank with you, it was because I saw it on television and I guess maybe saw it in the newspaper that I asked my staff to go back and see if we had anything on these people, if we could find them. And so we used our tools and we found the ones who were there, who were named, and we contacted them. Well, to be quite honest, they were concerned that they were being contacted, not just by the office, but by me personally. And they were afraid, I think it's fair to say, that they were being contacted improperly to be prosecuted. Well, obviously that wasn't the situation. And so this case had an intermediate situation of a lawyer who represented them in a civil lawsuit, then interject and wanted to know why, et cetera. So we had to go through that I'm trying to find out what happened. And so my encouragement to them is to go through the proper channels, which is to file a complaint with the police department. So what? So the police department can begin an investigation. Have they finished that? I don't think so. I don't think we have that. So we did what we could to cause this to go forward. I think otherwise, if the tables had been turned, obviously, yes, the person would have been arrested, it would have been investigated immediately, et cetera. But that's not what this was. She didn't complain. And until that story was run by whoever ran it, you all, or the newspaper, I didn't even know about it. We didn't know anything about it. So we've done what we can, which is to contact them and get them to file a complaint with DPD. Now, whether DPD has taken the same amount of time that they would had it been reversed, you'll have to ask them that. That's not a question I can answer.
DA Cruzzo, I have another question. The City of Dallas's attorney's office is trying to withhold video related to an officer who is on administrative leave for excessive use of force during the Dallas protests. It could perhaps be connected to one of these incidents. Should that video be released? It's currently in appeal with the Texas Attorney General's office.
Okay, first of all, I don't know anything about that. That's between whatever news agency perhaps, I guess, and the City of Dallas. My understanding is, once again, this is up to DPD, but my understanding is that the police chief has indicated that she's going to exercise her judgment discretion on releasing those. So I don't know anything about that, so I don't really want to make a comment on it one way or the other. I don't know anything about the lawsuit. I do know what she said because I've read it in the media, and the gap between what she said and where they are, I wouldn't know.
Chief, do you believe, based on what you've seen so far, the crimes were committed by officers?
Potentially. I'm not gonna say a crime was committed because I need the information. And first of all, let's take the guy, Mr. Saines, who lost his eye. If I don't know who did it, it doesn't really matter, okay? But even if I know who did it, I need to know this projectile. I need to be able, if I can, to be able to see it as best I can, okay, from the device to him. The same thing with the second case where the man was hit in the face. I need to see everything I can, possibly, from the firing to the impact. And those are the things that we're looking for. So I'm not going to say at this point that in fact a crime was committed, okay? Because is it potentially? Of course, that's why we're here. Okay? But can I say definitively no? Anybody else? Yes, sir?
Are there any other areas of concern that weren't presented today? Maybe some incidences that took place on the bridge that you're particularly interested in?
I don't know of anything on the bridge that suggests criminal conduct. I know there's the issue, obviously, within the city council and the police department as to whether or not tear gas was fired, whether or not somebody ordered it or disobeyed an order. That's all administrative things for the city. It doesn't involve us. I don't know of anything from the bridge that suggests the potential of criminal conduct. And so, right now, but once again, don't forget what I said. Just like the pepper ball thing, we didn't know that until you all, some portion of you all, as the media, put it in the paper and put it on television. So if there are other things out there that we don't know about, I mean, obviously we would want people to let us know.
Got it. Thank you.
And if they haven't filed a complaint, I'm gonna do the same thing. Try to reach out to them and try to get them or encourage them to file a complaint.
Do you and Dominique Alexander still maintain communications to this day?
I mean, will he call me occasionally? Yes. Do I speak to him very much? No. I mean, maybe once or twice. What do you mean by communication?
Just conversations. Like, did you communicate at all, especially during the George Floyd protests in Dallas?
I don't think so.
And you said Mr. Saint was hit with a pickleball or wood chip?
Well, it was a less than lethal device. I don't know. The item was never picked up by the police, so we don't have it.
Oh, so you don't know if it was a pickleball or
It wasn't a pepper ball. It was a solid device.
wood chip?
I'm not gonna call it a wood chip. I don't think it is wood. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, you have to be careful. You start
Right.
asking me questions like that,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go there because I don't know.
Okay.
And I don't have it. Whatever hit him, I don't have
You
it.
just know
It was never picked up.
Okay.
He was hit, obviously, by something solid. And I don't know, well, it knocked him down.
Right,
I
right.
mean, you have his descriptions.
Right.
And if you followed it, I don't know if you have, I know it's a lot, but, I mean, obviously, his eye was surgically removed, so it's
Right.
very serious. Whatever hit him, it wasn't anything small. It was moving fast.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? So, but for us, once again, to understand if an act is a crime or not, we need all of it. We need everything, so we can go forward if that's what's necessary. Okay? Anything else? Who are you with?
Texas Scorecard.
Texas who?
Texas Scorecard.
Oh, scorecard?
Yes, sir.
That sounds like a sporting thing. It's a scorecard to be. Well, thank you. Anyway, thank you all, and Ms. Leach, if you'll give her your emails, we'll get this out to you, so you have an original. Okay? Thank you all. We appreciate you helping us.
Thank you.
Okay. Stay safe.